First contact. Protocol Marcus Vale had always imagined that making first contact with an alien civilization would involve more fanfare and fewer forms to fill out. Instead, he found himself standing in the sterile docking bay of Nexus 7, clutching a briefcase full of trade agreements and wondering if his translator implant was working properly. The automated voice announcing his arrival sounded like it was gargling static. The neutral trading station hung in the void between Earth's solar system and Zephyrian space, a testament to engineering and diplomatic necessity. Its corridors gleamed with bioluminescent panels that shifted from blue to green, supposedly calibrated to be soothing to both human and Zephyrian nervous systems. To Marcus, it just looked like being inside a very expensive aquarium. "Ambassador Vale," a voice called from across the bay, crisp and precise as cut glass. Marcus turned and nearly dropped his briefcase. The figure approaching him was unmistakably Zephyrian, 7 feet tall with violet skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Silver hair pulled back in a severe knot, and cybernetic enhancements tracing elegant patterns along her left temple and jaw. Her black uniform was form-fitting and clearly military, adorned with rank insignia he didn't recognize but somehow knew meant, "Don't mess with me." "I am Kestra Vex, Tactical Guardian, First Class," she continued, stopping precisely 3 feet away. "I have been assigned to ensure your safety during the negotiations." Marcus managed what he hoped was a diplomatic smile. "Great. Thank you. That's very thorough of your people. I'm Marcus. You can call me Marcus. No need for all the ambassador stuff when we're just walking around." Kestra's violet eyes, completely violet, he noticed, no whites at all, studied him with the intensity of someone calculating exactly how many ways he might accidentally die. "I will address you as Ambassador Vale. Protocol must be maintained." "Right, protocol." Marcus hefted his briefcase and tried not to stare at the way her cybernetic implants pulsed with soft blue light. "So, have you been a bodyguard long?" "Sorry, tactical guardian. I'm still learning the terminology." "I have served in protective capacity for 7 cycles," she replied, already turning to lead him down the corridor. Her movements were fluid, predatory. "My record is unblemished." Unblemished, wow. That's... Marcus hurried to keep up with her longer stride. "That's really impressive. On Earth, we'd say you haven't lost anyone yet." "I have not lost anyone ever." The way she said it made Marcus's spine tingle, though he couldn't tell if it was from reassurance or mild terror. Probably both. "Good to know I'm in capable hands." Kestra paused at an intersection, her hand moving to something that definitely looked like a weapon on her hip. Her head tilted slightly, cybernetic implants flaring brighter. "Energy fluctuation in Sector 7, she murmured, seemingly to herself. "Likely harmless, but what?" "Nothing that concerns you, Ambassador." She resumed walking, but Marcus noticed her pace had quickened. "The negotiations begin in 4 hours. You will have time to settle in your quarters and review the preliminary agreements." "Sounds good. Hey, can I ask you something?" Marcus matched her stride, genuinely curious now. "What made you want to be a bodyguard? Tactical guardian. It must be dangerous work." For a moment, something flickered across her. Features? Surprise, maybe? As if no one had ever asked her that question before. "I was selected for this role based on my aptitudes. Personal preference was not a factor." That's kind of sad. She stopped so suddenly that Marcus nearly collided with her. When she turned to face him, her expression was carefully neutral, but those violet eyes held a sharpness that could cut steel. "Sad? I just meant..." Marcus realized he might have stepped into dangerous territory. "I meant that everyone should get to choose what they want to do with their lives. On Earth, we have this saying, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Your species has many sayings. Yeah, we're pretty quotable. He grinned, hoping to lighten whatever tension he'd accidentally created. We also say, better late than never, don't count your chickens before they hatch, and my personal favorite, it's always darkest before the dawn. Kestra studied him for a long moment, head tilted in that bird-like way. Your linguistic patterns are inefficient, but colorful. Yes, she said slowly, as if testing the word. Colorful. They reached his quarters, a suite of rooms that managed to be both luxurious and sterile, like a five-star hospital. Kestra performed what she called a security sweep, which involved her pulling out a device that beeped mysteriously while she waved it at every surface. Marcus watched from the doorway, fascinated despite himself. Clear, she announced finally. I will be stationed outside your door. Do not leave without notifying me first. What if I need to use the bathroom? She blinked. The sanitation facilities are within your quarters. Right, of course they are. What if I want a snack? Nutrition is provided through the room's synthesizer. What if I get lonely and want to chat? This time her pause was longer. I will be available for necessary communication. Marcus set down his briefcase and turned to face her fully. Kestra. Can I call you Kestra? You don't have to stand out there all night like a statue. There's a perfectly good chair in here, and I make a mean cup of coffee. Well, I make a mean cup of whatever the synthesizer thinks coffee is. I have my duties. I know, but... Marcus struggled to find the right words. Look, we're going to be stuck together for the next few days. We might as well try to be friends, right? I mean, if that's allowed in Zephyrian Tactical Guardian protocol. Something shifted in her expression, so... Briefly, he almost missed it. Friendship is not part of my assignment parameters. Maybe not. But it doesn't have to be against them either. She considered this, violet eyes studying his face as if he were a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. I will consider your proposal. That's all I ask. The next few hours passed quietly. Marcus reviewed his negotiation notes while Kestra maintained her post by the door, occasionally checking her weapon and monitoring what he assumed were security feeds through her cybernetic interface. He offered her coffee twice. She declined. Both times, but seemed to consider it longer the second time around. The dinner reception was held in Nexus 7's main diplomatic hall, a cavernous space with transparent walls offering a spectacular view of the surrounding nebula. Representatives from a dozen species mingled under floating lights that adjusted their spectrum based on who was standing beneath them. Marcus had never seen anything like it. Stay within 3 meters, Kestra murmured as they entered. She'd changed into formal dress uniform. Still black, still intimidating, but with additional silver trim that caught the light. I need clear sight lines. Got it. 3 meters. Clear sight lines. Try not to accidentally start an interstellar incident. Marcus accepted a glass of something blue and fizzy from a passing server. This is actually pretty amazing. Look at all these different species working together. It is impressive, Kestra agreed. Her attention split between the crowd and the multiple exit points she'd undoubtedly already identified. The evening proceeded smoothly until the moment it didn't. Marcus was mid-conversation with a trade representative from the Andromedan Collective when Kestra's hand suddenly clamped down on his shoulder. Down! She hissed, and the world exploded into chaos. Energy bolts seared the air where Marcus's head had been a second before. Kestra's weapon, some kind of pulse rifle that definitely hadn't been visible before, was already in her hands, returning fire with mechanical precision. The diplomatic reception became a war zone in the space of heartbeats. Stay down, she ordered, her voice deadly calm, even as she took out 2 attackers with shots that barely seemed aimed. Do not move until I give the all-clear. Marcus pressed himself against the floor, adrenaline flooding his system as energy blasts painted the walls in shifting colors. Through the chaos, he watched Kestra move like liquid violence, graceful, efficient, absolutely lethal. She wasn't just protecting him. She was systematically eliminating every threat in the room with a skill that was both beautiful and terrifying. When the last attacker fell, the silence was deafening. "Clear," Kestra announced, though she kept her weapon drawn. "Ambassador, are you injured?" Marcus sat up slowly, ears ringing. "I don't think so. Maybe a little singed around the edges." He looked around at the destruction, shattered furniture, scorch marks on the walls, several dignitary tables overturned. Well, that was exciting. "You are bleeding," Kestra said, suddenly beside him. Her fingers probed his scalp gently, finding a cut he hadn't noticed. "Minor laceration from flying debris. I'll live." But he didn't move away from her touch. Her fingers were surprisingly gentle, and there was something in her expression, concern, that he hadn't seen before. "Thank you. For saving my life, I mean. It is my duty." "Maybe, but you didn't have to be so good at it." For the first time since he'd met her, Kestra almost smiled. "I am good at many things, Ambassador." "Marcus," he said softly, "when someone saves your life, you get to call them by their first name. It's another one of those Earth customs." She studied his face, violet eyes unreadable. Around them, security teams were finally arriving, securing the scene and checking for additional threats. But in their small bubble of space, it felt like they were alone. "Marcus," she said finally, testing the name like an unfamiliar weapon. "Much better." "The attackers were professional," she said, businesslike again, but still tending to his cut. "This was not random violence. Someone wanted to prevent these negotiations." "Any idea who?" "Several possibilities, none of them good." She helped him to his feet, her hand lingering on his arm longer than strictly necessary. "We should return to your quarters. There will be questions, reports to file." "Of course there will be." Marcus looked around at the devastation one more time. "Kestra?" "Yes?" "That offer for coffee is still open. After all this, I think we could both use something normal." She hesitated, protocol warring with something else in her expression. "I would find that acceptable." As they made their way through the debris-strewn hall, Marcus realized that somewhere between the flying energy bolts and her surprisingly gentle fingers checking his wounds, everything had changed. The mission parameters were the same, but the woman walking beside him, alert, deadly, and maybe just a little bit curious about Earth coffee, was no longer just his assigned protector. She was becoming something far more dangerous to his peace of mind, someone he actually cared about. And judging by the way she kept glancing at him when she thought he wasn't looking, the feeling might just be mutual. Hearts in the crossfire. The coffee was terrible, but Marcus had never been more grateful for a hot cup of anything in his life. He sat on the edge of his bed, watching Kestra pace the length of his quarters like a caged predator. Her formal uniform had been replaced with tactical gear, matte black body armor that somehow made her look both more dangerous and more approachable. "The attack was coordinated," she said for the third time, her cybernetic implants flickering as she processed incoming data. 4 teams, synchronized entry points, military-grade weapons. This was not the work of radical extremists. Marcus sipped his synthetic coffee and tried not to wince. "So we're dealing with professionals. That's reassuring. It should concern you more than it apparently does." Kestra stopped pacing and fixed him with that intense violet stare. "Someone with significant resources wants you dead, Marcus. The negotiations are secondary. You are the primary target." The way she said his name sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds almost personal." "Everything about this is personal now." There was something in her voice that made him look up sharply. Kestra stood silhouetted against the viewport, the nebula's crimson glow painting her violet skin in shades of burgundy and gold. She looked like something out of a warrior's legend, beautiful and lethal in equal measure. "Kestra," he said softly, setting down his coffee. "What aren't you telling me?" She turned away from the viewport, and for a moment, her carefully maintained composure cracked. "I received new orders from the Zephyrian High Command 20 minutes ago." Marcus felt ice settle in his stomach. "What kind of orders?" "I am to escort you to a secure location and maintain protection until alternative arrangements can be made." "Alternative arrangements." Marcus stood slowly. "That's a nice way of saying they want to pull you off the assignment." "The High Command believes the threat level has exceeded acceptable parameters. They are sending a full tactical squad to replace me." "And you're okay with that?" Kestra's laugh was sharp, humorless. "My preferences are irrelevant. I am a soldier. I follow orders." "Bullshit." She blinked, clearly startled by his vehemence. "I beg your pardon?" "I said bullshit." Marcus crossed the room to stand in front of her, close enough to see the faint luminescence of her cybernetic enhancements. "I've watched you for the past day, Kestra. You're not just a soldier following orders. You think for yourself. You make decisions. You care about more than just duty. You do not know me. Maybe not everything, but I know enough." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her hand, the one without cybernetic modifications. Her skin was warm, softer than he'd expected. "I know you stayed up all night reviewing security footage. I know you've been running diagnostics on your equipment every hour. I know you asked the station chef about human dietary requirements, even though I never mentioned being hungry." Her violet eyes widened slightly. "How did you?" I asked around. People notice when a 7-foot Zephyrian warrior starts asking detailed questions about human nutrition. His thumb traced across her knuckles. "You care, Kestra. About the mission, about doing your job right, about—" He hesitated. "About me. She started to speak, then stopped, her gaze dropping to their joined hands. "This is not part of my programming." "Good. Programming is overrated anyway." Before she could respond, the lights flickered and died. Emergency illumination bathed the room in red, and somewhere in the distance, alarms began to wail. Kestra was moving before Marcus could process what was happening, her weapon appearing in her free hand as if by magic. "Multiple breaches," she said, reading data from her implants. "They are not waiting for the replacement squad. This is a full assault." "How many?" "Too many." She pressed a small device into his palm, some kind of communicator. "We cannot stay? Here, the secure location protocols are compromised. Where do we go?" Kestra's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Somewhere they will not expect us to be. Somewhere very, very dangerous." The maintenance tunnels beneath Nexus 7 were a maze of pipes, conduits, and machinery that hummed with barely contained energy. Marcus crawled through spaces clearly not designed for human proportions, while Kestra moved ahead of him with impossible grace, her enhanced vision guiding them through the darkness. "Tell me something," Marcus said, as they paused at a junction, his voice barely above a whisper. "In all your tactical training, did anyone ever teach you about human customs regarding dangerous situations? Such as, well, there's this tradition where people share personal information when they think they might die, in case they don't get another chance." Even in the dim emergency lighting, he could see her expression soften slightly. "What would you wish to share? I joined the diplomatic corps because I believed in something," he said, checking the passage behind them for pursuit. "I thought maybe, if we could just talk to each other, humans, aliens, whatever, we could find common ground, build something, Better than constant suspicion and warfare. And do you still believe this? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. Violet skin gleaming with perspiration, silver hair escaping its severe knot, those impossible eyes focused entirely on him, despite the danger surrounding them. More than ever? Why? Because of you. The admission slipped out before he could stop it. Because you're not what I expected. You're not just a weapon or a biological machine following orders. You're extraordinary. Kestra stared at him. For a long moment, her cybernetic implants pulsing with soft blue light. Marcus, I must tell you something. My assignment parameters included detailed psychological profiles of human behavior patterns. I was instructed to adapt my responses, to maximize your comfort and cooperation. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Oh, but, she continued, her voice dropping to something almost vulnerable. The profiles did not prepare me for this, for how it would feel to hear you laugh, or to see you show kindness to every being you encounter regardless of species. They did not warn me that protecting you would become... She struggled with the words. That it would become more than duty. Kestra. On Zephyria, emotional attachment during assignment is considered a failure of discipline, a weakness to be corrected. Through reconditioning. That's horrible. It is efficient. She reached out, her fingers tracing the cut on his scalp from the earlier attack. But efficiency does not account for this, for wanting someone to be safe not because of orders, but because the thought of them being harmed is unbearable. Marcus caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. For what it's worth, I think your people are idiots if they consider caring about someone a weakness. Perhaps we are. Her thumb brushed across his lower lip. But I find I no longer care what they think. The moment stretched between them, dangerous and electric. Marcus was acutely aware of her closeness, the way her armor couldn't quite hide the elegant curves beneath, the fact that they were alone in the darkness with death hunting them above. Kestra, he whispered. Yes, I know this is probably terrible. Timing, but she kissed him. It was nothing like the gentle, exploratory first kisses of romantic stories. This was fierce, desperate, full of the knowledge that they might not survive the next hour. Her lips were soft against his, but everything else about her was strength and controlled power. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. That was not in my programming either, she said. Thank God for that. A distant explosion reminded them that romantic revelations were a luxury they couldn't afford. Kestra's expression hardened back into professional focus, but her hand lingered on his face for just a moment longer. The Central Command Hub, she said. If we can reach it, I can access the station's defensive systems, turn the hunters into the hunted. Lead the way. They moved through the tunnels with renewed purpose, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed in those few stolen moments. The woman leading him through the darkness wasn't just his protector anymore. She was someone he was falling for, hard and fast and completely against all reason. The command hub was a sphere of crystalline technology suspended in the heart of the station, accessible only through a narrow bridge spanning a chasm filled with swirling energy. Marcus tried not to look down as they crossed, focusing instead on Kestra's confident stride ahead of him. The access panel, she said, pulling out tools that definitely weren't standard diplomatic equipment. I can override the lockouts, but I need time. How much time? Approximately 4 minutes. As if summoned by her words, armed figures began emerging from the tunnel they'd just left. Marcus counted at least 6, all wearing the kind of military-grade gear that suggested they weren't taking any chances this time. Kestra, I see them. Her hands never paused in their work on the access panel. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Anything. When I give the word, I need you to run. Back across the bridge into the service corridors, anywhere but... Here, I'm not leaving you. This is not a debate. The panel sparked under her ministrations, and she cursed in what he assumed was Zephyrian. You are the primary objective. Without you, the peace negotiations fail. Hundreds of thousands die in the war that follows. And without you, I'm just another dead diplomat floating in space. You will find another protector. Marcus grabbed her shoulder, forcing her to look at him. I don't want another protector, I want you. Something blazed in her violet eyes. Surprise, joy, terror. Marcus. I'm staying, he said firmly. We finish this together, or we don't finish it at all. For a moment, he thought she might argue. Then her expression shifted into something he'd never seen before, a smile that was purely, genuinely happy. Together, she agreed. The access panel finally yielded to her expertise, and the command hub came alive around them. Holographic displays filled the air, showing every system, every corridor, every life sign on the station. Kestra's hands moved. Across the controls with deadly precision. Defensive systems online, she announced. Security barriers activating. And now, the attacking squad suddenly found themselves trapped behind energy fields that materialized from the walls themselves. Their weapons, sophisticated as they were, couldn't penetrate the station's own defensive technology turned against them. Impressive, Marcus said, watching the would-be assassins mill around in confusion. What happens now? Now we find out who sent them. Kestra's fingers danced across the holographic controls, pulling up communication logs, financial records, shipping manifests. Data streamed past faster than Marcus could follow, but her enhanced processing speed made sense of the chaos. There, she said finally, highlighting a series of transactions. The Corvin Syndicate. They have contracts with several mining consortiums that would lose significant profits if Earth and Zephyria establish peaceful trade relations. So they decided to kill me to protect their bottom line. How charmingly predictable. The evidence is conclusive. We can present this to both governments. She turned to face him, and something in her expression made his heart skip. The mission is complete, Marcus. You are safe. And the negotiations? Will proceed as planned. The peace treaty will be signed. She hesitated. And I will be reassigned. The D. Words hung between them like a physical barrier. Marcus felt something twist in his chest, the realization that success meant separation. What if you refused reassignment? That is not how military service works. What if you weren't in military service anymore? Kestra's eyes widened. Marcus, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe it's time for both of us to choose what we want instead of what we're supposed to want. He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. Come with me. To Earth, or somewhere else entirely. We'll figure it out as we go. I would be abandoning my duty, my people, everything I have ever known. You'd be choosing love over fear. Seems like a pretty good trade to me. She studied his face for a long moment, her cybernetic implants flickering as she processed not data, but emotions, hope, terror, possibility. On Zephyria. There is a saying, she said finally. The heart that beats for another knows no chains. I like that saying. So do I. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Yes, Marcus Vale of Earth. I will come with you. We will make our own mission parameters. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of a civilian transport heading for the outer colonies, watching stars wheel past in their ancient dance. Beside him, Kestra wore civilian clothes, a simple blue dress that made her violet, skin glow like amethyst. Her cybernetic enhancements remained, but she'd had the military restrictions removed. Now they served her will alone. Any regrets? He asked, slipping an arm around her waist. Only that we did not do this sooner. She leaned into his embrace, solid and warm and perfectly right. Though I admit, retirement from tactical service is an adjustment. You'll figure it out. Besides, I hear the colony worlds need security consultants, people who know how to handle dangerous situations. Will there be forms to fill out? Probably thousands of them. Kestra groaned dramatically. Perhaps I should have stayed in military service. Marcus laughed, pulling her closer as the stars spun past their window. Too late now. You're stuck with me and all the bureaucratic inefficiency that comes with civilian life. Then I suppose, she said, rising on her toes to kiss him, I will have to adapt. As their lips met, the transport's computer announced their arrival at New Geneva Station, their first stop in a journey that had no predetermined destination, no mission parameters, no orders from high command, just two beings who had chosen love over duty, writing their own protocol as they went. The end.